Greetings, Goddess Body Mind Spirit community. This is Tyra Omilade, your goddess guru, your sister friend, and I'm here to talk to you today about how modern spirituality, the information age, has a lot of you feeling spiritually or being spiritually starved. And so it's a topic that I think is important because part of my goal is to make sure that you understand how to move the needle of your life and just to make you aware of some of the pitfalls in on the spiritual path. We live in an information age and it will have you thinking I go from A to B, so on and so forth to Z. This is how I get to where I want to go. And spirituality by no means is linear, by no means. At best, at its, in the best way possible, it may be a spiral, which the spiral is definitely one of the feminine symbols in spirituality that I teach about. Um, at best, it's a spiral, but more than likely, it's just a big wad of mess that eventually gets you to where you want to go. And so, yeah, let's talk about some of the pitfalls that lie ahead of the spiritual aspirant and how can you avoid it? So I want to start off a little bit. You'll hear me with my little pen and paper. Yes. Modern spirituality wants us to be putting everything online, which I will do that because I will lose pen and paper in a minute. And that digital copy of my journal, my notes is very helpful. But sometimes you just got to use pen and paper. Okay. So you'll hear me turning the pages of my journal where I put notes. But I just want to start off by sharing a little bit about my journey in hopes that it helps you to see you in your journey. Most people look to me, once you get to know me, as somebody who is spiritual and I know about spirituality and I have had success on my spiritual journey. And just want you to know it's been a process and I'm still, a work in progress, a work of art in progress. So I started out with knowing that something is different about me spiritually. And then I set off on my journey and decided I need to figure out what is this pull that I have. And just, like so many people back in the 90s when I got started, it was, well, really, it was the 80s now that I think about it, but I really became more conscious and aware in the 90s. We had all these books. There were like an infinite amount of audio cassettes that you could pop into your car, uh, little player and listen to them as you drive around town. I would just have so many that I would listen to as I drove from Tennessee to Mississippi to check on my ailing mother. And yeah, eventually we got to Oprah, Change Your Life TV. That was like really taking it up. And oftentimes there were talks that would come to town too. I typically didn't go to any talks, but there was one time I did go to an Iyanla event, Iyanla Van Zant. But yeah, just like so many people, I started out with all of the books and the cassette tapes and programs. Maybe you could find a video or something like that. But it was scary because, it was different and people in around me oftentimes were not on the same journey. They were perhaps tied to a religion and not accepting of people who were spiritually different. And so I learned quickly to keep it private and to keep it personal. And honestly, that is what spirituality, I don't care if you're spiritually open like me or in a religion, it's personal, period. Nobody can live your spiritual journey. Only you can do that. But I made it to where I understood I had to have a practice just within my four walls. And even for me, just within like a small space within my house where I did not really talk to too many people. But it worked. A lot of us, we get on this spiritual journey, we start learning new things. Oh my gosh, it's like I remember like it was yesterday hearing people talk on Oprah Change Your Life TV or finding books like Iyanla's book, Tapping the Power Within. And though intellectually it kind of felt like this is not what I was taught, and I don't know about this weirdness. Spiritually, I felt so open. It felt so good. And it just kept me engaged. I had to continue on this journey. There was no turning back. I took the red pill. It was no turning back. I was essentially Neo at this point. Um, so yeah, the first time I got on this journey, or when I initially got on this part of my journey, it was definitely about it made me feel good. I started feeling like I can break up with whatever I initially had and figure out whatever is this new thing. And I felt so, so free. After a while, though, I remember thinking, yeah, I'm learning a lot of new things. I'm listening to what they're talking about. I am applying some of it, but I don't know. It's like my life isn't fully shifting. There's still this level of discontentment, feeling like something is wrong with me, something is wrong with my life, and I'm not quite sure what to do. And that's when I actually started venturing off and finding a community and opportunities where I worked with a teacher in order to figure out how do I apply this so that it's not just something I intellectually know. I can use it to shift my life. And I remember studying this book called The Netter. I probably read The Netter at least 3 times, maybe more, but for sure, cover to cover, 3 times. It's by Ra'un Nefer Amen. And one of the things that stands out the most to me in this book is he says a lot of people know, but if you know about is what a lot of people know. They know about spirituality, but they don't actually know it because to know it means to apply it. And when I read that, I made the commitment that I would always apply spirituality. And that's when I decided to start working with teachers. And many of you who have been around for a while know that my teachers are Oshinike, Iya Oshinike, Queen Mother Oshinike, and Babaji Kolioso, Kerede Anke is the lineage I come from in my spiritual tradition. A lot of times in Africa, we will call out the name of our ancestors. And so my spiritual ancestors or ancestral lineage is the Kerede Anke lineage. And love, love, love working with teachers. There were so many insights. Oftentimes I would be confused. I would book time to go and talk to Iya, join her in her workshops, in her healing experiences, um, and would come out with so much more clarity. Yes, and I never lived in the same city as them. I live in Tennessee. They lived in Kentucky, and I say lived because E is still here in the spiritual, the physical realm, and Baba G is an ancestor, but they were in Kentucky, and so I would spend a lot of time doing my own spiritual work here at home, and then I have to get in my car, drive up to Kentucky, or I have to get on a at the time there was people we weren't doing webinars, it would be like teleconferences, and you know, listen to what they were teaching about, get some guidance or whatever. And that is when I began to realize I was making the most progress. I actually started accelerating my spiritual growth. I actually decided I want to go as deep as I can. And so I did initiations where I was given assignments. I had to show up in monthly meetings, and there were homework and talk about what is it that I have learned, what is it that I um, applied and discovered within myself in order to make shifts and changes, um, and give account if I was slacking off and not doing the work that I said that I was going to do. I found that I just moved more quickly. I remember there was a point in time when I got upset with um, just my community, I'll say it that way. And I backed off from being a part of them. And during this time, I was a busy mom and a fitness instructor, and got lost in teaching fitness. That is, in astrology, we have comfort zones. And one of my comfort zones, maybe in a previous life, I was very healthy and fit and help people to do the same. And so it's always been a natural thing, even when I was a girl, before all of this wellness revolution at 10 in the 80s. 1980 is when I was 10. Me and my neighbor, we would be out walking, we were on diets, we were exercising. It's just always been something that I've just naturally had a propensity for. And so, yeah, it felt like something that was about my purpose. And so I got lost in teaching dance and fitness. And I remember the day I woke up, like, spiritually, I feel so disconnected from myself. And, yeah, I was very disconnected and decided to make amends with, what was going on between me and my teachers, and went back and, started getting engaged again. And, uh, it felt nourished, quite frankly. Felt like what it felt like when I felt starved was almost felt like cold and rocky. And I always kind of feel like there's me, and in between me and this conscious awareness, there was a metal wall in the shape of me. And inside of that metal wall was my soul, my spirituality, my spiritual, emotional, mental nourishment and wellness. And once I re-engaged with my community and got back to helping my godmother, my teacher, with doing initiations for women, that I started feeling like, okay, I'm back. And, I didn't need health and wellness or Zumba anymore in the way that it was in my life. It just, yeah, I was done. I kept teaching, but it did not have the same um, level of focus. So as I have matured, especially since 2020, going into my 50s, I realized there's some new level I need to go to. And I have blossomed out into working with many spiritual teachers. I definitely listen to a lot of talks, and I listen to audiobooks and podcasts, not as many podcasts as I used to, but I definitely will listen to, some. It's more like what I'm trying to say. I listen to a lot of content. I watch a lot of videos, a lot of content, and I, do my own spiritual work. I cannot not do it at this point. It's such a part of who and what I am. And by the same token, I will put as much money on the table as I need to be a part of a community that will help me to be engaged and watch other people go through their process, because I realize how valuable it is to do that. And I have started growing exponentially because I get coached or I'm able to talk with a teacher. And I have varied teachers that I use, their services. I get readings from people. I am a diviner. I do my own readings. And I recognize when it's like, no, there's a blind spot. I need to get a reading. And I find that sometimes where I am, especially right now, life is a big struggle. And there's no way I'm doing this by myself. I do so much better because sometimes my spirituality, my life will feel like it looks like a wreck. I'm not making progress. That's when I know I most need to be in community. And it's something that my husband, who's a pastor, and I talk about. It's weird when people are their worst. That's when they don't come to church. I'm like, why? That's exactly where you need to be. So that's how I feel, being spiritually open. The last thing I need to do is be sitting here by myself. I'm worse off when I am not engaged with people, with the community. And so, as a spiritual guide, what I notice, because I'm somebody whose work is designed to help people, um, to be that community, to be that teacher, that healer, that diviner that a person can work with. And what I notice is how many people spend a lot of time consuming information, and you get tricked into thinking when really, just like my teacher said, about spirituality. But when you really tune into your body, you're feeling a little spiritually starved. And then I also noticed how confused people feel. It's like, well, I'm doing this, but why are things not working out? Well, some of it is the information age has everybody thinking, because we are able to consume so much content. It has you thinking you know when really you know about. And so I want you to just consider some things. Um, I'm just going to share my notes now that I have shared all of that. So one thing that I know, and I've said this, too much solo spirituality is a problem. And part of that is because the very nature of being human means to be limited. It is to have a blind spot. You have a blind spot no matter what. You have limits and limitations on you just by being human. The very nature of being human gives you a blind spot. And so when you are taking in all of this, it can help illuminate some things, but it does not help you to actually see your blind spots. Is when you work with a teacher, is when you're in community with other people, you're actually engaging people like the old fashioned way, that either you're able to see your own blind spot or you're able to see somebody else who is sharing what they're going through, and you hear the teacher working with them, um, or you just see them asking them some questions and pondering them, that you're able to actually see something that you couldn't see. Because the law of oneness has, or says, all is one. We're all connected. And when we are in community with other people and we're watching their process, or, they're watching us, it's essentially you watching yourself. The people whose um, insights and whatever they're going through, their situations stand out the most to you are truly a reflection of you. But when you're just sitting in your house doing things solo, or you're just sitting and listening and consuming content, one of the things I tell people all the time is, if I ask you a question and I tell you to write your answer into the chat, it is because you need to go find that answer. If you sit with the question, but you never get the answer, you're going to just sit with the question, and change is not going to come. Change only comes when we go in and get that answer. Because what happens is a lot of us are taking in information without integration. And information without integration looks like, oh, the teacher asked the question, but I don't know the answer. And I'm not going to even, like, I'm on to the next video. Like that, sometimes people are like, whoa, that's a good question. And, but it's no answer coming through because we've gone on to the next video. We've gone on to the next website. A lot of times I remember being the one who the teacher is talking about something and I'm like, oh shoot, let me go into Google and do a search. And you'll hear people say things like, what's that website? What's that person's name? What's that book? I see so many people hear what I say and then they go do searches, because that's just what the information age has us doing. The internet is infinite and there's no bounds to it. And we go and look. I remember when I first initiated into EFI, I would go and look, and it was like, let me go learn about Oshun. Let me go learn about Yemoja. And you go and look, and oh my gosh, in EFI, you can learn. It's like so many conflicting stories, and then you sit with it, and you just kind of like, well, I don't know what to do with this. Well, that's because you need to go sit with a teacher. In astrology, humans need connection, and it is reflected in astrology because there's 3 houses devoted to social connections and relationships. And this is because a human has problems developing alone. What child, what baby born is going to survive outside of its relationships to its parents or connections to society? As I've gotten older, I see more videos about grandparents, and it resonates with me because I'm at that age where perhaps I might have grandchildren. And it talks about how important the relationship is between the grandchild and the grandparent. It is an essential relationship. Maybe it's, if you have an elder in your life and it's not the blood of that child, but definitely the blood relationships between grandparents and children, if it's possible, is essential. And so, what makes us different as adults? We're not. Having relationships and spirituality is important. And just because a lot of us have been turned off by organized religion doesn't mean that the organization of some sort, a connection, a fellowship of some sort, isn't important. It is. I'm here to tell you. It is difficult to grow sitting in your spiritual space alone. It is difficult to grow just searching and watching content and consuming it, but having no place to actually practice it in community. I also remember hearing my godfather, Babaji, talk about householders. There's in India, there are the monks, and then there are the householders, and how the householder path is actually the more challenging path because it's easy to go and be a monk, be isolated, to live in a community with monks. I actually bet there's more drama there because monks are human. I bet you there's more drama than we think. But they are like, there's the expectation of being calm and um, having this spiritual growth and ascension and discipline. It's not like what most humans live. It's not the normal human experience. And it's much more challenging in the householder where it's you and perhaps a partner, you and family, you going out in that world working, being in the community. That's where true spiritual application takes place, baby. All right. So we will not grow without community. It is important. And it is important to have a spiritual community, um, and a teacher. Even in astrology, there is the notion of having a spiritual teacher. There's a house that's devoted to having teachers, people who will guide you. And a lot of times we want to go get the education. We go to college or we go through a certification process. And and yes, it's important for us to have teachers that help us, professionally, but we need the ones that are going to help us grow and expand and understand ourselves. And sometimes it may not be someone who's spiritual. I'm all into coaching. I think coaching is brilliant. Oh, I didn't even write this down. We have the healing houses. There's some houses devoted, some um, aspects is what I'll say, that indicate you need to work with a healer. There's always healer, heal thyself. But baby, sometimes you got to go get some spiritual healing from somebody who's going to be laying some hands on you, doing some energy work with you. Very, very important. Okay, so this is all designed to keep souls in human form growing and evolving. Okay, so that you can remember who you are and step fully into your purpose. Let's see here. What else do I want to share? Um, in the end, you are actually the only one, like I said, who can walk this road of your life. But it's so much easier when you are in community with other people. And I also say in community with other women. One of the things that I notice is we women don't really know what it means to be a woman. It is just a hot mess over here in women's world. We haven't gone through proper rites of passages. Our initiation into womanhood may be through dealing with the mother who is wounded and she wounds us, or dealing with our sisters and sister wounds. It could be through our own blood sisters. It could be through friends and friendships, but definitely, let us start our periods and see what ends up happening. Wow. There's so much trauma around the period starting, so much, negativity, or you weren't taught. God has helped you, us, if there's been sexual trauma as a young girl, that throws things off for us as women also. So we don't have proper rites of passages, and we don't even know what it means to be a woman. The sister wound, the mother wound, has us not even really wanting to be in community with other women, when in all actuality, the only way we're going to get healed up is we actually come into community and figure it out. But also, it's important for us to remember, let me tell you something. Back in the day, in ancient times, women were taking care of each other. They were helping to, usher each other into, from one stage of womanhood into the next. And we need to bring that back. This is why a lot of us are struggling, because we are not with women. And a lot of us will say, well, I don't trust us. I don't trust women. Women, they backstabbers. They're nasty. They're mean. Only the ones that are unhealed. That's how I see it. They are misinformed. Am I trying to hang with them if they just want to be in that place? No. But I know there's a lot of women out there. My own community shows me, no, women are going to show up for each other. We're going to be there for each other. Um, so, yeah, we need each other. Um, so, another thing that I want to share is, and this is probably going to be my last point, as an NLP practitioner and a hypnotherapist, I also know that we all have what is called an inner representation. I like to also call it an inner landscape that determines what you allow or don't allow into your experience. And I'm realizing that spirituality is actually designed to help us redesign our inner landscape, is how I'll say it. But what happens is if you aren't in a space that helps you to actually illuminate what the heck is in my inner landscape, um, because you're just too subjective and biased, you won't see it. It literally takes working with a teacher, a guide, and just being in community with people are doing this kind of work to help you to see what's there and to become truly an architect of your life, to redesign what's there so that it supports your destiny. It supports the goals that you have in your life. Maybe it'll help shift you away from societal values that maybe don't actually line up with your destiny. For instance, a lot of women are still under the illusion that to be a woman who births a baby is to be something special. Most moms will tell you this is the hardest thing I've ever done. um, and motherhood alone is a journey that could take you out of yourself and you forget even more because it really takes giving so much of yourself. But it's really just what society has taught. Yes, some women are going to come into this world and have a natural inclination for having children, but and not. But a lot of us feel like it's important to have a child because that's what we've been told. Like the value of you as a woman is birthing a baby, when that's not true. And when we're able to go into our inner landscape and see, oh, I've taken in a value that society has given me, but I just want to figure out, what do I actually value? You may realize that your style of motherhood would be you're going to adopt a child, or you nurture other people in some kind of way. Your mothering, it looks different from actually birthing a child or adopting a child and raising a child. And you can find peace with it, or you accept, you feel good about accepting you weren't born, like you don't have a desire to have a child. So, and you're okay with it. Because a lot of women have to push back against society saying, well, why don't you want a child? Because I don't. So getting into that inner representation and looking at what's there, and maybe I kind of see it as like you go in and you pick up a value and you look at it and you're like, oh, this is not even mine. And you just go put it in the proverbial trash can of your soul and say, okay, instead, this is my true value, or this is the value I'm going to install into my inner landscape. And this is how I live. And what it ends up creating is congruency in yourself. You don't have all these different parts that are at war. They're all working as one. They're working together. And life feels easier. Life feels more in flow, and you're able to navigate the hard times, not feeling like, well, I must be a bad person. This is why it's happening. No, it's just a bad spot, and I'm going to figure it out, or it helps you to have more times of, flow and ease, and you embrace it because you're congruent, you're aligned, and the world doesn't feel like it's this big scary place, and instead it truly feels like you're 100% in this game of life, seeing it as the blessing that it is, getting from it what you came here to get from it, so that on the day that it is time for you to breathe your last breath, you leave out of here free and clear, spiritually fulfilled, leaving nothing on the table. And so don't let this information age fool you, dear sister. I encourage you to connect with the spiritual community. I invite you into my community. I invite you into my circles, into my workshops and initiations. There are plenty of other people who are extending this invitation to you. And so avail yourself to what we are offering. We were born to do this work. We were born to make it so that you don't have to go it alone, sister. And so, yeah, make sure you get spiritually nourished by doing it the old-fashioned way. You want to combine the solo work in your own home, in your own spiritual home, your own personal ashram. That's what the places that people go to have these spiritual excursions in India is called ashram. You have your own personal ashram, but you need to be coming into the ashram of a community. You need to be working with that spiritual guide and that spiritual teacher so that you can, get that spiritual nourishment. And nothing like getting it in community, in a safe space with the teacher who really cares. And I do offer myself as that person. But yeah, hope this is helpful and let me know. Okay, let's practice here. What is your takeaway from this video? Are you just going to consume this video and move on to the next? Are you going to listen and be like, oh, that was interesting, and move on to the next video? Or are you going to stop and take time and integrate it by going in and finding one takeaway that you're going to apply to your life and type it into the comments? And then I also encourage you to take whatever this takeaway is and write it down on a piece of paper. It could be your journal, it could be an envelope that's sitting on your desk. Write it down and watch it happen. Thank you so much for being here again. I'm Tirra Omilade, your spiritual guide, your sister friend. I'll see you, or connect with you, I should say, in the next video or audio. Peace.